Okay.
Hey, I'm on another call with a famous person. I call her famous because just an old friend of the family, training, a little background. We've known each other going on almost a decade. I'm with Glory Forbes on this episode of NOS. And are you excited to be on? You know what NOS stands for?
No, what does it stand for?
So we have like a sub-series, a series of our No Fear.
Uh-huh.
And it's called No One Special. And isn't that like, wait a minute,
Love
why?
it.
How come? Right? And and I always do some sort of like segue intro to why that is, because I get a ton of emails from people who kind of in a self-deprecating way, like say, hey, I don't know if you're actually going to read this. You probably don't read this. It's probably your secretary. I'm no one special, but maybe if, or they'll, because they're so used to like, whether it's podcasts I've been on, it's like some famous cop or some famous military personnel or some martial artist. And we expect all those people to defend themselves, protect themselves, to have all these skills.
Totally.
And so like a month ago or so, I was like, I'm just going to interview people who are like no one special. Like nobody, there's no reason that they should have survived. There's no reason they should have won. They just did some shit that was smart and interesting. And you were on my super short list because of the incident after, you did that, I don't know if it was a 1 day or 2 day, the camp at CrossFit San Diego, like in 2008.
2 days. Yeah.
That was like,
So long ago.
Had we moved out here, or I was just visiting?
You guys had moved out here, yeah.
Just moved. So it was like early 2000 or summer 2010.
Yep.
So 8 years ago.
Yep.
Do you remember that event?
I sure do. I remember coming over to your house. We had dinner, and it was, I don't remember why we were over there, but we were having dinner with you guys, and you were like, yeah, I'm having a seminar this weekend. Come on by. And I was like, sure, I'll come.
Right.
I ended up coming, and I loved it. It was a great seminar.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Do you remember, was that the event that we did in groups where we had everybody doing the ATM scenario against the wall?
Yes.
Yeah. And you remember the next door neighbor called the cops, like, because he thought like something horrible was happening next door.
They were just screaming and kicking and cussing and
yeah. So for those of you, I mean, everybody listening to our show, I reference the ATM video so often because it's not just, first of all, like muggings happen at ATMs or near them because, bad guys go, I wonder if this person has any money. They just saw you leave a money machine. Duh. So, but for people just to get a visual of this, we were at CrossFit San Diego, which is this massive box, downtown in not the nicest area of San Diego. And we had like, I think 80 or 90 people at the camp. It was pretty good size. But we had people in groups, and the wall we were using to simulate the ATM was adjacent to another like company that had used furniture or something like that. Mm-hmm. And everyone were like, so we had like 80 people like screaming and simulating like verbal assaults and also banging on the wall, right? You remember part of the ATM thing is to smash the machine and start cussing at it. Fuck, they emptied the account. Are you kidding me? And what have you. So anyways, visualize 40 people doing it at once, screaming and getting into it. And you're like in the store next door. Yeah. What the shit? I'm calling the cops. I'm not going next door.
Yeah, totally.
It was funny. So let's jump in because it was kind of dramatic, like the message that you sent me after your event. And why don't you just relive that for us? Tell us, unless you want to segue or pre-brief that, but.
Oh no, man. And I think that the ATM thing happened actually a couple of years after. A year
right.
After, right?
Yeah. It was
time after. So I was getting off of work. And at the time I worked at this little 50s, 60s style diner. So I was all dressed in like a little diner dress and I had flowers in my hair, I looked all cute, and I was, so I was getting off work and I had a wad of cash in my pocket and I decided I was going to go run some errands. And while I was running errands, I decided, I'm going to go ahead and run over to this Bank of America ATM machine and drop this cash into this ATM. So I'm walking up to the ATM, and I don't remember what day of the week it was, but I remember that it was during the week, and it was getting dark. So it was starting to get dark, and I have this wad of cash in my pocket, and I look cute. I look like a real soft target, I think. So as I'm walking up to the ATM, I noticed kind of out of the corner of my eye 4 guys off in the distance. And I made note. I was like, okay, there's a bunch of dudes over there, but I didn't think much of it because stuff like this, you don't think stuff like this is going to happen to you ever until it actually happens to you. And I walk up to the ATM. I get in line behind a gentleman that's finishing his transaction. He walks away from the machine. So I walk up, and thankfully I had my card and I also had a check. So I had my card and my check. I left my cash in my pocket. And I stick my card into the ATM machine, and out of the corner of my eye, I kind of start to notice these guys are getting closer. And I start to notice they don't look the best. They kind of look a little shady. And it's so crazy because all of my spider senses went off. All of that adrenaline started going. All my spider senses went off. And I was like, oh, okay. But still didn't really listen to that, you know? And so I noticed them coming, and they end up right behind me. And I kind of was like, okay. By this point, I have this huge adrenaline dump in my system. Why are these guys all? There's about 4 of them, if I remember correctly. There's about 4 of these dudes. And I hear one of them say, how much money you got in there? And I was like, oh, shit. What do I do? So, you know, at this point, you have a split second to make a decision. Do I turn around? Do I engage these guys? What do I do? And so I'm like filing through my brain files, you know, like, and I was like, boom, got it. Devalue tactic. I was like, if there's any time that I'm going to put this to practice, I'm going to do it right now. So I remember you said, hit cancel on the ATM, hit cancel, because I had already started my stuff. I hit cancel, and I went crazy on the ATM machine. I started.
Give us a sample. Don't be shy because we swear in there.
This motherfucker! I was like, this motherfucker! He took all my money. I can't even go grocery shopping now. And I'm like kicking the machine. I was like, this fucking asshole! And I was going crazy. I was like hitting the machine. I was kicking the machine. I started kind of like cry, you know, screaming, and I know I can kind of feel the guys behind me. They're kind of starting to back up. And before I had hit it, I heard another guy say, "You heard him. How much money you got in there?" And at this point, I was like, "Cancel!" I just went crazy on the machine. I figured, I guess if I obviously make a scene, a big enough scene, and devalue myself enough, they're going to walk away. Hopefully, right? And so I feel them kind of back away from me a little bit, and I hear one of them kind of mutter, "Man, she crazy, man." And I can kind of feel them starting to turn around and kind of walk past me. And so I grabbed my card and I beelined it to my car, got in my car, shut the door, and I was just kind of shaking. I mean, it's crazy the adrenaline dump that you get from that. But I just sat there and I kind of started thinking, wow, what would have happened if I had turned around and I had engaged them versus just making that quick decision just to do what I did. It was pretty crazy.
It's amazing how it worked like it was in a movie. Right.
Yeah, it was perfect. I mean, and thankfully I was in more of a visual, it was an open area, you know, there was a major road behind us, but it was getting dark and the parking lot was fairly empty. So I figured I might as well make as big of a scene as I possibly can, draw as much attention to myself as I can, and then make them obviously feel like she's not worth it because maybe she really doesn't have anything to give us. So it's pretty crazy how it did work. And I sat in my car. I was like, I am so thankful that I went to Tony Blauer's seminar. I am so thankful because it literally probably saved my life. It's pretty crazy.
It's amazing to me. I got a big smile and goosebumps thinking about it. And you know, we get so many like crazy stories like that because, you know, it's anticlimactic. I was talking on a earlier podcast about how just through osmosis, watching John Wick movies and Bruce Lee movies and Chuck Norris movies and, you know, going to martial arts, everyone practices the physical. Mm-hmm. But, you know, the average person who just wants to get through their fucking day, work hard, get paid fairly, go home, go work out or hang out with your family or go to a movie. Like, we don't want to be mugged or raped or moved to a secondary crime scene or tortured or murdered, right? It's like, no, skip that. And that's been our focus for decades, you know, and the most important part of our training is understanding the situational awareness in relationship to the self-awareness in relationship to your ability to manage fear. And so you could have known this, but you kept your shit together. And you, like you said, you went through your mental Rolodex, you downloaded, you said something interesting here. If I'm going to practice this, you know, I'm going to do it now, forgetting, and I'm just pointing this out for listeners because the ATM video is free online for people to study.
Mm-hmm.
But you actually didn't practice it. You actually deployed it.
Yeah.
You had practiced it in San Diego 2 years earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, how many reps do you think you did in San Diego just to have it internalized? I mean, like I'm not going to go to,
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that many.
Yeah. So, you know, it wasn't like you spent like 8 hours doing the ATM video. You, like you said, for people who didn't hear, cause I was talking over Glory, she did like 2 reps. You know, we had 80 people, like, you know, rotating. We had, you know, I think we had like 8 groups of 10 or 10 groups of 8, and people were just cascading. So the thing when I'm designing a self-defense concept, I'm not, you know, pulling a rabbit out of my ass going, well, in case a unicorn and a mermaid attack it's like not some fantasy thing. I'm actually looking at real violence going, okay, if somebody sees somebody go to an ATM, what do they probably want, right? Now they might drag you, they might beat you for the money, but they want the money. And the moment they recognize that you have nothing to offer, then they may go, you remember the 3 things bad guys want: property, body, or life.
Right.
They may say, hey, let's rape her and kidnap her. Let's murder her. They may do that, but probably not, right? It was an open area and stuff like that. And it was going to be, but it could, this shit goes bad really fast, right? And people are fucking brazen. Bad guys are brazen. So it's amazing. And it's the same thing, like just when you understand this devalue principle and what bad guys want and what they don't want, to get caught, to get hurt, or for things to take too long. When you understand that, you're giving your brain permission to kind of create these you know, scenarios where this adaptation, I'm in A and this is C, what's B? I got to do B. And that's what happened with you, is like, okay, scenario A is nothing's happening, it's a nice day. Scenario C is I'm getting my face punched in and my wallet, my money gone. And what B is, okay, what's the butterfly effect here? What can I do to insert, you know, some new language or dialogue? So I'm so excited. And I called you when I read and we spoke like within a day or 2 of the event. And you were much less calm when you're relating it 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God, I think you saved my life last night.
I just couldn't believe that I was able to put that into play. You know, you never think. You just don't think. Well, like you said, going through your daily life, you know, oh, it's a beautiful day. Oh, that's never going to happen to me.
You know,
and then it does happen to you. And then how amazing is it that you have the tools to be able to deal with something like that? I mean, it could have gone worse, but it didn't, because that got me out of the situation. So,
and here's the thing: in the worst case scenario, let's say, and you're a strong athlete and you did the physical drills like the spear and the palm strikes and the knees. When you're kicking a machine, there's another thing people don't realize. And part of the strategy here is, like, I could have said, just start weeping at the machine and fall down in front of the machine and cry, you know, like Jim Carrey in Dumb and Dumber in the bathroom stall scene, you know, call for your mommy and put your thumb in your mouth. Like if you, right? And people go, oh, look, he's helpless. He's got no money.
Yeah.
And if they decided to kick your face in there, look where you are. You're sitting on the floor with your thumb in your mouth. Now, imagine if one of them had grabbed you and you just finished screaming like the Incredible Hulk, you know, like fucking, you fucking, my money, and you're kicking the machine. But you've activated your fast twitch muscle fibers. You've got your adrenaline flowing through your system. Your muscles are moving. You're like, holy shit, if somebody grabbed you, that next shot would explode. It's almost like, you know, you've warmed up. That's part of the behavioral strategy in its design, because if it escalates, I want you as crazy fucking ready as you can be. Right?
Yeah, and that's interesting that you say that, because I felt like I was ready. If I had decided to pull that card out of the machine and start beelining, if one of them had started or tried to grab me, I did. I felt like I was ready to scrap.
Right.
I was ready to throw an open palm elbow to
Sure.
the face. You know,
Right.
I was totally ready to do that. I thankfully it didn't come to that, but you're
It,
absolutely right. Definitely by getting that amped up, I was ready. I was
yeah.
ready.
And listen, like that's, the statistically, unless it's a hired hitman after you, right? The bad guys go, like this is too much trouble. We can, like, there's going to be some fucking helpless, victim who's going to walk up to the next machine with their, looking at their phone with headphones in their ears with no
Mm-hmm.
situational awareness. And we don't need this. We don't need this here. So, amazing job. The what's interesting for people is, for me is, we talk about, and we've refined our language a lot since 2010, but it's the same message. But we tell people every victim of violence who lived to tell the tale said they had a bad feeling before.
Mm-hmm.
And so you said, you spotted them right away, but our little bubble, I'm late for something. I got to go do something. I'm running errands. I'm doing that. Um, did you pick up, do you remember if you picked up any danger when you first spotted them, or you just noticed them?
I noticed them, and I noticed off in the distance they didn't look amazing, but I was like, well, you see people all the time
Right.
who maybe look a little bit shady, and
Right.
usually it's fine.
Right.
And it wasn't until they started getting closer, and I got a more of a clear view of them, that all of those that adrenaline and those spider senses kind of started going off. And then once they kind of started getting into my bubble, I was like, okay, I feel like something is not right here.
Right. Very
So
cool.
not immediately, but yes, as they started to get closer.
And,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because a lot of experts will say, hey, if you see this, you want to do this. But in real life, like when we're talking to people, is you're during the detect and avoid, defuse and de-escalate phase of D1, D2, real life is happening. Your brain will go through cognitive dissonance. Your brain will try to correct things. Your brain is going to tell you, I'll be fast. I'm probably safe. You might look at something going, oh, look, it could be, I'm going to pull a U-turn here, even though it says no U-turns. And then you get into an accident because somebody's speeding. If things are calculated, you just don't, so I always like to ask that because, the lesson from this, and it's tricky, is like if that was the last ATM on earth, and if you didn't deposit your money, you were going to be evicted, and then you and your child, or I don't think you had any kids at the time, would be evicted, and you had to get that money in there. Like there was no, I always make fun of it. I don't know if you saw the second ATM I did for CrossFit, is I did another one where I talked about, I go, is this the only ATM and you have to use this ATM? So, because if it looks sketchy, if it's a sketchy area, if you're near your car and you get out and you go, those four guys look weird, I don't really need to deposit this now. Get the fuck back in the car. And so,
Absolutely.
lessons
Yeah, I mean,
learned.
looking back, of course, I kick myself because I'm a female. It's getting dark outside. I have a lot of cash in my pocket. I look cute. Just
Right.
getting off of work. Dumb
Right.
of me to go to an ATM with a bunch of cash in my pocket. So that's a situation that wouldn't have even have happened had I obviously been smarter.
Right.
But
Well,
like you said,
we
life
do these
happens.
things. Yeah, we do these things, and people you get complacent in your routine. So now, if you had to do that again, what changes would you make?
Oh, I would see them and get back in my car.
Right. Nice. And that's the whole true safety model. There's no
Yeah.
reason there's no reason to be obstinate about it. Like there might be, one person in the world listening to this going, I should have the right to make a deposit without feeling shut up. Bad guys don't follow the law. Right. And if you absolutely need to make a deposit, drive to a well-lit, more public area.
Absolutely.
Right? Recruit somebody. You've got a bunch of cash on you. You could, you see some burly, guy standing near a bar or restaurant there going, hey man, there's some sketchy people up there. I'll pay you $20 to walk me to the machine and stand by. Like there's little crazy things that you can do.
Yeah.
I tell people this, just like a little bonus out here, underground parking lots. You park in some shit area when you come in and shit, I got to walk now 3 levels down and do that. There's an attendant or security. You can go up there and be, I don't mean to insult all, like I don't know what concepts insult people these fucking days, because people are, but you can play the damsel in distress, right? You're badass. I know you're a very confident person. You're a very good athlete. You know, you could gouge somebody's eyes out. You could collect DNA with your fingers. You could, but why the fuck do you want to even do that?
Exactly.
Why not go up to the security guy and go, hey man, you know, I'm a helpless female, and would you walk me to my car, and exploit that so that you're choosing safety? Why the fuck not?
I completely agree. Yeah, totally agree. And actually, I had a situation recently where I had both my daughters with me, and we were gonna go. We went up to the top of Mount Helix. You know, the top of Mount Helix with crosses.
Yeah.
And we were just gonna go walk around up there, and it was, you know, coming towards the late afternoon. And I drove up, and of course there was like tons of people, like just random kids smoking weed, you know, some shady looking characters, you know, blasting their music in their cars, just looking really, really, really shady. I got that same tingly spider sense, you know, because they were all over the place. And then I had another guy I kind of had pulled up into a parking spot, and I was kind of looking around, and I decided, nope, I'm going to leave, because I don't know what the situation's going to look like if I get out of the car. So just backed up and left, you know, and I guess you get wiser as you get older.
No, that's good.
But why not listen to that little feeling that's like, ooh, this might not be the safest situation right now.
Good. Bravo. You know, here's the thing. Like, I would describe you as kind of very outgoing, free spirit, really high energy. And so you've been around a lot of, you know, crazy people. Like, you put yourself out there. How often do you get that bad feeling, that spider sense feeling, right? So here's the thing that I tell people is, like, if you walk by everyone you walk by, you got it. Like you need therapy, right? Like, oh, yeah, like you just don't like people. Everyone's freaking you out. That's not what we're talking about. So people listening to this, you know, you don't know Glory, you don't know her background and everything, but you know, when she says, I got that same feeling again, or this time I got that feeling, what I want you guys listening to this is, like, you're around people. Like, I'll give a very specific example. Anytime somebody comes to the door, my dogs bark. But there's sometimes that they bark differently, or they growl. And I trust, like, they're going, rah, 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 okay, shut up. And then somebody's like, rah, rah. It's like, okay, there's something about this person they don't like. And it could be just that person's scared of dogs. But what I'm doing is I'm noticing it. Mm-hmm. And then I'm expanding my awareness. And so using what you know, the two incidents that Glory talked about, what I want you to think about is, you know, how many times have you been to a park where you walk by people, where you're doing stuff, and you don't have a bad feeling? Like, you know, then there's still people jumping around, versus the times you do. And here's the thing is, like, maybe nothing happens to you and your kids because it's too public, but you come back and your car was broken into. You know, it was keyed. It was like, and you go, fuck, I knew I shouldn't have parked here. It's always something like that. And almost every time I've, like, violated my intuition, trying to knock, hello, McFly, you know, like, knock. I mean, how many times have you said in your life, fuck, I knew that was going to happen, right?
Yeah, totally.
And we just got to trust it. I always tell people, hey, spend an extra 5 minutes and look deep into the intuition instincts. What was the message? And is it something that you can address? Something that's easy to address, because what you do is you put it to sleep, and then you're free and clear of the thought. And in this case, that was a really wise thing, you know, especially you were with your daughters. Excellent.
Yeah, like I said, it could have been fine, but you know, I think you get a certain feel, like you said, you get a certain feel about a situation. It feels a certain way. The people give you kind of a really bad vibe, and you know, like you said, you walk by plenty of people that give you a bad vibe, but you don't necessarily feel unsafe, you know. Right. So it's cool to kind of learn as you go, and make really good decisions, and listen to that intuition as you know. It's
badass. And the big thing to remember is that, because this is a system based on kind of energy, in physiology, in psychology, the skill set is transcendent and transferable to relationships, to business, to like anything in life. Like, you know, I've had some business scenarios go really bad, and everyone but me around me goes, "Oh, I knew that guy was going to fuck you," or "I knew that," and I'm like, "Why didn't you tell?" Like, because when you're close to it, like I'm the guy. For me, I was the guy who had to put the money in the ATM. I wasn't paying attention because I was, you know, like myopically focused on my task, and my situational awareness was compromised. But it's something for everyone listening and for you to think about that. Of hey, how do I apply this concept of D1, D2, D3, D1, you know, improve my situational awareness as it relates to self-awareness, managing my fear, verbally de-escalating, and apply that through all aspects of my life. And if I get a bad feeling about something, fucking address it, you know? So you can do that with everything. How old are the kids now?
I have a little girl named Freedom, and she's 4 years old.
Nice.
And then I have a 3-month-old little girl, and her name is Justice. So you got Glory, Freedom,
and Justice. That's an amazing trilogy. You're going to teach them some self-defense when they get older?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Of course.
The most important self-defense is not to be there where you need it, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Cool. Well, we got to get together. You got to come visit. You got to get up here. So
absolutely.
We will wrap this up. I'll tell Jess that we connected again and send you out an invite. So Glory, thank you so much for sharing this amazing story. And the, you know, you said something earlier that I kind of want to end on, where you went like, I couldn't believe this worked so perfectly. And like, that's what shit you practice should do. It should work, right? You know, you shouldn't be surprised when, you know, like, why are you practicing something that might not work? And the reason that it was so easy for you to use, and I actually do have one more question for you. It's easy to use because when we're creating the scenarios and what we're teaching you in the training, like, it could be real life. Like when you're practicing it, you're going like, this could happen. I could do this. I've gotten mad before. I've yelled at something. I've gone to the bank and went, oh fuck, I have no money. Like it's not, you know, it's not like I said, okay, pretend you're like an astrophysicist and start like writing, you know, the theory of relativity with chalk on a wall, and right, you're going, I don't get that, right?
It's really easy to apply.
This is congruent, right, with real life. So the thing I wanted to ask you, and we'll wrap on this after you answer, is you were scared. They were behind you. You said you described this adrenaline dump, and then you went into this mental Rolodex of fuck, what am I going to do? When you saw the D-value in the ATM in your brain, how long did it take you to deploy that? And did you still have fear when you knew what you had to do?
I think once I saw that picture in my head, it was like a 2-second, 1, 2, boom, go. Right. And yeah, of course, I think you always have fear, but then you have that adrenaline dump that you just, it's like, it's now or never. Here we go. Boom, go. And I think, like you said too, I'm a very free-spirited, so I'm not a very calculated. It didn't take me long to decide, okay, this is what I'm going to do once I saw it. I was like, if I'm going to put this to the test, it'll be right now, and then we'll see. We'll go from there. We'll see what happens from there.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if you listened to my first No One Special podcast with Jennifer Peck, and she had done a half-day course where we went over the ATM video, you know, probably around the same time. And she used it at a gas station, you know, and it was insane, but she's a completely different personality to you, you know, outgoing and confident woman, but like different, you know, and then, you know, do you know Carl Pally? I mean, I know you know who he is. I don't know if you know him personally, but, you know, he used it outside of a Starbucks where, you know, he grew up in Spain and had been mugged a bunch of times. And then he trained with me when he was in the States. And he said he was walking by this guy, and as he walked by him to go into Starbucks to grab a coffee, he had the same feeling, a physiological change in his body that he used to feel just before he would get beaten up and mugged growing up in Spain. And so he comes out of the Starbucks And he pauses because he's thinking about this, and he sees the guy about 20 feet down he's still leaning against the wall, and the guy comes off the wall. Like he's like leaning there, and he comes off the wall and kind of like looks, but doesn't make eye contact. And Carl's like, oh, fuck. Like he just got off the wall. Like, why? Right.
Yeah.
And Carl reaches into his pocket, pulls out his cell phone and starts fucking screaming in the phone. He does the ATM video, but to the cell phone.
Yes.
What he did, he was there going, you tell him I'll fuck him up when I see him, that motherfucker. He said, what? Oh, fuck it. Like, and he's screaming at like nobody on the phone, but he's watching it at the corner of his eyes like this, as the guy's just watching Carl scream into his phone. And then the guy like slowly just leans back against the wall.
That is brilliant.
And Carol, and here's Carl is different than Jen and different than you.
Yeah.
It's the concept of realizing like this is the ladder. This is the life preserver. This is the flare. You're right. I need to deploy this. And it just works. Your body knows it's going to work. And it's interesting, when in Gavin de Becker's book, The Gift of Fear, he says, fear is the static you feel before the event. I might be paraphrasing that. And that's why I say, like, the moment when you're scared and then you go, this is what I'm going to do, 3, 2, 1, go, right? And you go for it. During, like, if I stopped you in the middle of like your third kick when you're screaming, I got no fucking money, and I said, hey, are you scared? You might have cognitively said, of course I'm scared. I might be a mug, right? But in that moment, you're really not. Like in that moment,
you just kind of, you deploy it and you go, right. And you're not really thinking about, oh, I'm scared, I don't know. Then you're going. You're right. Your body just does it.
Pretty amazing. Well, I'm obviously so happy to reconnect and glad that worked out, even though I knew it worked out because you called me or told me. But it was so good to catch up with you, and you got an amazing smile and great energy, and hard to forget your kids' names, and freaking awesome. But let's get together soon.
Yeah, let's do it. Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Glory.